I was born right off an original alignment of Route 66 in West St. Louis County. But probably the most important memory I have associated with Route 66 comes from when I was about 4 years old. And this is right after World War II. People would come to our house. They were men, and they weren't invited. They were people that came off the road, men of the road. And my mother always found work for you to do. There were weeds to pull. There were something heavy to be moved. There was some good, honest work to be done. And we'd go over to the kitchen sink. That's where my mother would usually be stationed, washing dishes, preparing something, whatever. And there was a window there that looked right out onto the side yard. And while the men worked, we would start talking about them. But once they finished their work, and my mother would give them something to eat, we'd usually sit down under this clump of mimosa trees. It was shady there. And that's when I would pull a chair up to the sink and stand there with my mother and look out the window. And we did this several times. And she and I would make up stories about these men.
Wow.
We'd give them names and give them identities. And we'd pretend we knew who they were and where they came from and where they were going. And I just loved doing that with my mother. It's how I really started learning about the art of storytelling. I'm not so certain there were good old days. There were for me in a way, because if you change me to from this little middle class white boy in St. Louis to a little black boy in St. Louis at that time, whole nother story.
Yeah.
No good old days.
Wow.
No good old days.
Yeah.
Horrible days. Sometimes the mother road was an abusive mother. It wasn't a joyful journey to put all of your dreams, your hopes, your belongings, your elderly parents, your babies on top of a beat-up car and drive into nowhere. You don't know where you're going. To answer an advertisement to pick fruit. And when you get there, they don't pay you. You get hit with billy clubs. You're hit with derision. So I think I'm a big believer in an honest look. I think it's the best look. The real story is the best. John Lasseter out at Pixar Studio really wants to talk to you. So I called Lasseter. He said, Michael, I've read your book many, many times, Route 66, The Mother Road, and I not only adore it, but I piled all my sons and my wife into a big van, and we've traveled the road, and I'm convinced now that I need to make a movie. And the movie, I see it in my head, is about a hotshot race car who's just full of himself, an arrogant little race car. And he gets lost. And he ends up on an old 2-lane American road. And he finds out that it's okay to be a race car. That's fine. But it's also good to sometimes slow down. And there's only one road that can serve as that canvas. That's our palette. And that's your road. That's Route 66. And we set out, and I said, the first thing you're going to do is we're going to all drive the road. All of us, meaning the creative team, producers, directors, animators, writers, everybody. We're going to drive the road. And I loaded them in big black rented Cadillacs,
Really?
connected them with microphones, and we traveled the road. First, either from a person or many times from a composite of different people on the road. Mater is 4 or 5 different people. Sally is basically one person. Don Welsh, the owner of the Rock Cafe in Stroud, Oklahoma. It was just a tremendous experience, and those are the memories that I carry with me. A lot of them humorous. They didn't know what roadkill was
Really?
until I showed them a dead armadillo. And even then, they didn't quite believe it. They said, maybe it's sleeping. I said, no, it's quite dead.